Do you want to start vibe coding in a safe and reliable way? In this video, I will explain you what you need to take into account when to start vibe coding in order to avoid that disasters can happen, like completely losing data on your computer or even worse, killing data from your company. So let's get started. So when we talk about vibe coding, what do we exactly mean? So vibe coding refers to that nowadays, using generative AI and coding agents, we can create applications, we can create websites, not by doing the coding ourselves, but by giving instructions to a coding agent. And in that way, nowadays, everybody can make fantastic kind of prototypes of a website or an application simply by prompting a coding agent. And I think that has a lot of opportunities, but there are also some risks, and some first disasters have been kind of notified in the press. For instance, there was this news item where somebody by accident completely erased the C drive on his computer when using the coding agent of Google Anti-Gravity. And of course, it's something we really want to avoid. Or another example, here is the example of somebody that by accident kind of erased the product database of his company when using the Replit coding agent to vibe code applications. So I think these examples show that although vibe coding has huge opportunities, you need to take into account some safety measures when you start vibe coding. And in this video, I will explain the most important safety measures that you should take before you engage in a vibe coding project. And I will engage here in vibe coding in Microsoft Visual Studio Code using the GitHub Copilot agent. This is a very straightforward approach because actually you can use these tools for free. I have a separate video to explain how you can install everything, so just check the link in the description. So let me now show you a bit what kind of safety precautions you need to take before starting vibe coding. So the first thing we need to do when vibe coding is we need to open a folder. And I would always recommend when you start a new vibe coding project to simply open an empty folder, because this will be the folder to which the vibe coding agent has access. So we want to make sure that it cannot access files that it should not access. So when you start from an empty folder, that's already a first good step. So let's briefly open an empty folder. So I can open a folder by pressing here on Open Folder. I have here an empty vibe coding project folder. So this is the folder that I will select. So I have selected the folder. Now it will ask me if I trust the author, and this is a folder that only I use, I only have access to, so that I can indeed trust. And now we can start vibe coding. And here on the right hand side, you see my vibe coding agent. So here is the place where I will have to give instructions. If your agent would not yet be enabled, how to do it. So let me close it now. So you just have to press Ctrl-Shift-E, and then immediately the GitHub Copilot agent will be enabled. The first time that you want to use it, you will have to log in, but then you're logged in. So now I can start writing instructions in my Copilot GitHub agent. Now, before we start now using the Copilot GitHub agent, we need to double check one in particular thing. And we do that by going to Settings, to Chat Settings, and then we can type in here Global. And here we see a particular setting called the YOLO mode. So here, if this would be enabled, you kind of give the agent permission to do almost everything it wants to do automatically without you having to give approval. And that would trigger quite some security issues. So I would definitely recommend not to enable this. So double check that this option is actually not enabled, like in my case, so that you can avoid and reduce the risk that it starts doing stuff that it should not do. So that's an important step to take to use vibe coding in a secure way. Now here we can now start giving instructions. And another safety issue is here, make sure that you never in your instructions start disclosing sensitive information like passwords or API keys or sensitive personal information, because the moment we kind of disclose that here to the chatbot, there is a risk of knowledge leakage. So again, here, just as a kind of safety measure, in this chatbot, don't provide sensitive information. It might be that you have an application where you want to use API keys, so then you have to provide them here in the folder as an .env file or whatever. but not here in the chatbot because that would trigger some risks. Yes, and so now I can start vibe coding, and here is an example. I want to build a landing page for a startup idea that I have called TriedSpark, and that's a platform where I want to connect people that attend conferences. So now what I will simply do is to ask, please create for me a landing page for the following startup idea, and I will now just copy paste a description of my startup idea. So this is my description, and now I can press enter, and now the coding agent will start coding to try to build me a landing page. Yes, so now actually we can see here on the left hand side that it started coding for me a landing page. So this is an HTML file with coding, and we can briefly see how that looks like. So this is just a lot of coding to create for me a first draft of a landing page. And you see now on the right hand side, it asks me a question that I need to allow. Now, if you have very limited coding experience, you might not really know what it now asks you to do. So I always recommend, especially in the initial steps when you do this for the first time, is to, before you simply allow something, to double check what this exactly means. And how can you do that? Actually, what I then do is simply select this kind of question. And so I will copy it. And now I will go to ChatGPT. So now I'm here in my ChatGPT, and now I will write a prompt saying, I'm a beginner in vibe coding. What does this mean, and what are the risks? And now I paste in what I got in my agent and press enter. And now you will see that I will get some explanations what this exactly do. So here it's saying, what does this command do? This part just changes the current directory in your terminal to that folder. From this point on, any command you run applies to the file inside that directory. And here we see something else. This starts simply web server using Python. So here you can see that this is actually quite straightforward commands where we should not be concerned. So then I can simply go back and say allow. And so this will now actually open up in my terminal. So this is the terminal of your computer. And that's why we need to be a bit careful, because here the agent can really work in the terminal of your computer to do things. And then here I get a new question. So now it wants to open up the server in the local host. Actually, we can now press on it. And here we have already now my first website being designed. But it is important that when it asks you questions and you feel unsure, that you double check what is going on. And at the beginning, that might be a bit time consuming, but I think actually the advantage is that you then will also learn a bit more about how this kind of applications work. So I think you need to have a bit of discipline here to double check before you simply allow the agent to do something. So that can heavily also reduce the risks that things can go wrong. So I think these are actually the important things you need to do to safely use vibe coding. And then I think you can be quite assured. Still, to be super sure, I would always recommend on a regular basis to take a copy of your full C drive. So if still something terrible would happen, that you have a backup. I think that's always a good plan. And finally, if you really want to start doing some sensitive experiments, there are more technical solutions. For instance, you can run Microsoft Visual Studio Code and the agent in a Docker, in a container using Docker. That's a bit more technical, but if you simply ask ChatGPT to give you a step-by-step explanation on how to create a container, then you can actually follow that step-by-step. So that would be even an additional security if you really want to be super sure. Okay, but I hope this can be helpful to really start vibe coding and not having to be too concerned about all kinds of security issues. Still, I think vibe coding is very nice for developing first prototypes. Not use it for commercial deployment. If you want to do that, I still think you need a real expert, a human expert, to double check everything. But I think with the safety measures that I've shown, you can really start using vibe coding for developing your first prototypes. So good luck, and please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments which kind of things you vibe coding, because that would be nice to know. Okay, thanks for your attention. Bye.